Let's talk about the second assassination attempt of one former President Donald J. Trump and a couple of other things I have on the docket, Davey, especially with a lot of these online threats going around locally in our neck of the woods. Just kids being kids, I know, but they have to. We'll get to that when we get to that. Was joining us on 710 KURV, Frank Roberson is an expert in protection and counterintelligence over at the Black Rhino Group, and he joins us now. Over 23 years of a career. That is incredible. How'd you get into this?
Oh, thanks. Thanks for having me, by the way. It was actually an accident. I was actually in politics and had official duties as a state political director. And right after 9/11, in the state that I was working, the governor is the only elected official that had protection. So when I was traveling with the elected officials that I was helping campaign with, one of the guys that were protecting the governor, his name was actually Frank as well, asked me what I was going to do to protect these elected officials I was traveling with, all the constitutional officers of the state. And long story short, he set me up with a Secret Service agent. We sat down in the middle of the state for about 3 hours. We started talking about how to do it, and for about 8 years, I put details together for lieutenant governors during a campaign, 2 congressmen, and multiple other elected officials before moving to the private sector.
What does the job encompass? We talk about the second assassination attempt of Donald Trump, and we compare it to the first one, and there's just a lot of questions, right? How does somebody get past the perimeter? What is a perimeter? How is the perimeter set up?
Yes, this is the second time that it's been, in my opinion, the perimeter being the root cause of the attempts. I was a lead advance. I worked my rear end off to earn spots on some great teams as an advance person. That's my expertise. And the advance always starts with recon of the area, whether it's Google Maps, whatever it might be. And you start to figure out what perimeter you want at that point. The Butler, Pennsylvania, I believe the decisions were made in the Pittsburgh field office where the perimeter was going to be what it was that day. Whether the advanced guys recognized that it needed to be bigger or not, I'm not sure. I haven't heard, but whoever makes the final decision on the perimeters need to trust the advance agents. I'm guessing some advanced guys wanted somebody up in the tower, but you start with that. That's the first thing you do is fix the perimeter, and then you have to have overwatch. You have to have complete control of anything above that oversees everything.
About how far out do the guys have the perimeter set? Because I know, for example, say the Super Bowl, they're watching over that place, whatever stadium it is, for like 2 weeks in advance or something like that to make sure that nobody's camped out or hidden inside the facility.
Well, on our team, we have a gentleman who is former military and worked with snipers. And what they do is that it's usually 1,000-yard perimeter. And what they'll usually do is they'll find out who in that area can fire accurately from 1,000 yards and kind of keep track of where those people are. And kind of keep anybody that can shoot that far, there's not very many people. So they try to keep track of that. So 1,000 yards is usually what they do. Sometimes it'll be a little smaller when, I worked with a Secret Service detail in San Francisco at the Ritz-Carlton. There's rooftops and stairwells and all that, and you'll see agents in stairwells 3 blocks away. But, snipers also only look from where the principal is out. They don't look, they don't have them out in the field looking back towards the stage, so to speak. So they have to depend on local law enforcement to do those types of jobs on the detail.
Joining us on 710 KURV, Frank Roberson is an expert in protection and counterintelligence at the Black Rhino Group. Davis Rankin, your question. Concise question.
A question which has always kind of bugged me. Since there are recorded shots killed, at least in wartime, up to a mile or a mile plus, I forget which. Should a mile be the circle of protection? Or is that? It seems like. What do you think?
Yeah, and I think the reason, and I'm going based on the gentleman that's on my detail, because the sniper side of it isn't my expertise. setting up the perimeter and the plan for advancing and where to put everybody is my specialty. But they do keep track of people that can shoot that far accurately. They will monitor them. They will find out who they are, especially if they're in the military, foreign military, and they want to know where all those guys are. Just like I want to know anybody that's in the room that might have a gun, either whether concealed carry or whatever. So a mile.
What if they're bad guys, though,
mile,
and they're not on any list that you guys know of? I mean, I realize that's extreme thinking, but
it is. But you have to. I learned from that initial meeting I mentioned when we kicked off the show. The first two things I was taught is you got to prepare for every eventuality. But the most important thing is you have to have an imagination, because if I can think of it, someone's already thought of it. So your thoughts of a mile, someone's already thought of that. Someone's tried a shot somewhere in the world from a mile, and has thought about how he can make that shot from a distance. It's hard to get in a situation, I think, from a mile away. But again, I would defer to snipers' expertise on that. But we do it. My response when a shot's fired is critical too. Butler, Pennsylvania, he was left on stage for 1 minute and 38 seconds, and we train every month to get the guys off the stage in 6 seconds into the vehicle, and the vehicle's already rolling.
Wow.
And down the road in 1 minute 38. I don't know when they changed their protocols on that and decided to do the bear hug thing and walk them off the stage, but you got to get them off. I mean, when Reagan was shot, he was unceremoniously tossed in the back of the limo. Agent jumped on top of him, and they rode him off.
Yeah,
when Kennedy was shot, they sped off. They got him out of there. They didn't stop the car and try to resuscitate him and see if he's okay. We learn from every one of these situations. They don't do open cars anymore since JFK. They do underground or covered pickup drop-offs. They're going to learn from this, and any of the comments that I make are not meant to blame anybody, but you got to grow from this and figure out it's going to change our plans. I mean, we have guys that we protect over the years that have had major threats to their families, and we make adjustments as we go along. If someone gets into a meeting that they're not supposed to, we find out what the issues were. So you got to learn from this stuff and hopefully get better. But it doesn't look like they changed the perimeter situation.
And speaking of threats, how do you get intelligence from the internet? There might be somebody in the area that might be disgruntled, have a bone to pick with said person that you're trying to protect. Because in our area, there's been like a handful of kids recently putting in threats to the schools and stuff. And I don't know if the kids understand that they're easily traced on the internet when they do this stuff.
That's a great question. And there is software out there. It's very expensive, so it's very hard to for civilian teams or non-government teams to get access to it. But there is software out there that we used for a daughter of one of our principals, and she was on the internet a lot, and she traveled a lot, and she was a kidnapping risk before I started and took over for the gentleman who was there before me. The principal had always talked to his daughter about the kidnapping threat. So what we do is there's a software that monitors all social media and that type of thing. So you put in different keywords that would, shooting. I mean, this guy from yesterday has a strong social media presence. He's probably, in my book, if it was me monitoring it, he probably, just from knowing what I know, probably had 10, 15 different words that would have triggered the software that we've used in the past, that would have put him on the radar and had us monitoring him if we were going to be in the area or vicinity where we know he was at. And then if he's changed his location, like if he sent some messages from Florida, or he went back to North Carolina first, we would have picked that up too. And we would have had an opportunity to kind of know what we're dealing with before we're in that area. So in the sense of schools, those kids that are posting threats and that type of thing, you can get it down to what the kid's name is, and then you go back and you go search and you go an individual threat assessment on each of those individuals. You do a threat assessment interview if you feel like want to know the seriousness of it. And those are interviews where you just go in and you ask a series of questions that are baseline questions, and then you start asking some more serious questions, and you use the body language that you're trained to do, and you figure out if the kid is lying or exaggerating or just did it for fun to try to get attention. Even the best trained bad guys, when they're trying to conceal something, it's written all over their face. So those are some of the methods that we would use. We had a guy that was trying to convince the principal's daughter to leave me behind when she was going to go to Malta to meet his alleged family. She was telling him all these little things about how he can detect and see a car bomb from driving behind the car. Stupid things that she was believing and thought he was, something else. And we were able to expose him. But, we did backtracking and found out he was taking advantage of other billionaires' daughters and trying to get money for his tennis career through the family.
What an interesting conclusion that was. Wow.
But
that's a motive.
That's another call, right?
I don't know I don't know if that's a great motive.
You could hire a
that
coach.
Certainly is a motive.
You could hire a coach with all that money.
When you are talking about the school system, that type of thing, you got to take the threat seriously because of everything that's gone on, and the kids have got to know that. So even if you set the example with a couple of the kids that are doing it, and do the research online and find out what the names are, and go deep into it, and make a presence where they know that it's a serious thing. That could curb it, especially if it's false stuff. But you're going to find probably a couple of kids that you want to keep an eye on, and that may or may not prevent something in the future. Just by being there and constantly, being a resource officer, always checking, hey, how you doing? How you been? Just happens to be coming in, sees them on the cameras, just happen to walk by and say hello to them. Just a presence, so the kid, whoever it is, would know somebody's keeping an eye.
I don't think kids these days are all that tech savvy, and I thought they would be, but they're not. I think that they think that if you delete a post off the internet, like it's gone forever. And no, there's plenty of breadcrumbs after the fact. Frank, thanks a lot for spending some time with us this afternoon. Frank Roberson with the Black Rhino Group joining us on News Talk 710 KURV.